Hello, I'm Dave Goldberg, engineering faculty member at the University of Illinois. Today we'd like to talk a little bit about what is creativity. Creativity is one of those words that is commonly used, but it's used kind of loosely in a number of different ways. So, for example, we'll say he is a creative thinker, or that was a creative design, or even that was a piece of creative accounting, which isn't exactly a compliment. And so it's not always clear what we mean by the term creativity. And so here in this brief video, we'd like to consider 7 senses of the concept creativity. Now, before we do that, we need to consider the difference between saying that a concept is X versus considering a concept as X. So when we have something fairly simple, it's fairly straightforward that we say something is something else. So we might say that a computer is a computational device. But when we have something like creativity that is a complex concept and a term that is used in many different ways, it's probably better if we use the idea consider creativity as something and not think that we've defined it completely. So we're going to, in really this 2-part series, consider creativity as 7 somethings. We'll consider creativity as an individual thought process. We'll consider creativity as a kind of group brainstorming. We'll think of creativity as a socially enabled and mediated process. We'll then think of creativity as history, generative vision, a heuristic inventive process, and also as a way of eliminating resistance or blocks to accomplishing something. So those are the 7 ways that we'll consider creativity. Now let's start with creativity as individual thought. And this is an old idea, and one of the classic texts in creativity theory is Graham Wallas's The Art of Thought. Graham Wallas was a professor of political science in the United Kingdom, and he thought of creativity as a process of individual thinking which had 4 different distinct stages, which he called preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification. And if we reflect on these terms, we can get the idea that Wallas was propagating, that in order for us to be creative, we have to have some particular problem in mind or some particular question that we're considering. So that's the preparation stage. We need to then kind of incubate that, and that can be in our sleep, or that can be on a long walk, or that can be over a period of time. And then there's that aha moment of illumination, followed by the cognitive verification that our insight was really an insight. Now, taking off from that perspective is the notion that creativity is a kind of organizational group brainstorming. And that idea was propagated by Alex Osborn in the 1950s, where he came up with a series of steps for promoting group brainstorming. Now, we won't go through the Osbornian steps of brainstorming, and they've been used and modified over the years, and many companies use a form of the kind of process that he was talking about. But one thing we note is that, like Wallas's conception, creativity in this brainstorming mode was a stage-wise process. Moreover, like Wallas, the idea was that somebody had to have creative thought before reflecting and criticizing that and verifying that it was actually a good thought. And so it has similarities to the kind of thing that Wallas was talking about. Now, going beyond this organizational and kind of group setting, Mihaly takes the view that creativity can be properly viewed as a social process, and he defines it as creativity is any act, idea, or product that changes an existing domain or that transforms an existing domain into a new one. And he uses those terms fairly specifically. A domain for Csikszentmihalyi is is the set of symbolic rules and procedures that create an area. So that could be a musical domain or a scientific domain. And that a field is the group of individuals who are the gatekeepers to the domain. So that's the social creation of this domain of symbolic rules and procedures. And the creative individual is the person that we're reflecting on. And Csikszentmihalyi's work is situated in a larger concern with the study of what he calls flow, or optimal human experience, where like a basketball player who is in the zone and can do no wrong, we are in thought processes that are in some sense optimal and seem smooth and effortless. And so these are three aspects of creativity, and in part two of this consideration of what is creativity, we'll consider the next four.